Welcome to Camera Tech Podcast, episode 117, the podcast where we talk about photography, videography, and anything that's got anything to do with any of that with me, Kersten, and Nick Kirby.
Shh. Hello? I was going to say something else.
And if you are joining us on the audio version of this podcast, either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or some such, then be reminded that you can see the fully fledged Technicolor version over on YouTube as well, where you would immediately realize that we are, well, in a slightly different environment today. In fact, no, we are back on our set, but we've lit it differently.
Yes. Same lights, different positions.
Same light, different position. Just goes to show how much you can do.
Yeah.
Just by moving some lights around.
Oh, and no gels.
And no gels. So we just, I don't know.
Got bored.
Yeah.
But why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
We've recorded last week's episode in a Porsche.
Thank you.
On the road.
From Stuttgart.
Yeah. That was interesting, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. But we've, so we haven't really been on our set together for a good few weeks.
No, we haven't.
Yeah.
For many reasons, actually.
Yeah.
But that's all right. Doesn't make a difference.
It's the holiday
nice to be in the
season.
same room.
Exactly. And plus, it's the summer. We're technically it's the summer break, so it's just all over the place really at the moment.
And good God, is it hot in here?
Yeah. Although the heat wave is coming to an end, as from today, apparently.
Yeah,
I mean,
supposed to be last night, but no.
Well, it was supposed to be raining today, and then that was that apparently that's not happening tomorrow. But just looking at the weather forecast, the temperatures are dropping.
They are, yeah, and they need it. But my flat will retain all of the heat that it's had for at least a month.
Oh man,
it doesn't get rid of it.
Yeah,
never. It's probably a good thing, but yeah,
you're in the first floor as well, which
it's a killer.
Does retain the heat a bit more.
It's a killer. So we do have a fan going on right now, but hopefully we can get rid of that in post.
Interesting point, because as I mentioned last week's episode, we recorded in a car, in a convertible, whilst driving
at speed.
And I mean, I have to say, I was amazed by how clean the audio is.
Shockingly good,
right? It was incredible. If you go back into, revisit last week's episode, especially if you watch the YouTube version of it, you can actually see us zooming around. I couldn't hear myself think, let alone hear my own voice.
My favorite part was that you're clearly shouting over 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just sounded silly because there was no other sound.
I know.
Now, there is a huge problem with it for me because it had the processing on it not been as much as it was, you wouldn't have heard us properly.
Sure.
I would have had to have done and got to remember that this is going out on audio and it's also going out on video. So for the audio guys only, it needs to be as clean as it can be.
Yeah.
But for the video guys, it doesn't connect all that much because it's such clean audio. Yeah. You can't hear the car.
Yeah.
You can't hear much of the outside. And that for me is a slight issue. Now, so you're going to need to go back and have a little listen, but long story short is the plugin that I used for the audio to clean it up was by Waves. So those of you who enjoy their audio will know who Waves are. And it's their Waves Clarity plugin, the Pro version. And it cleans it up like with AI. It's just superb what it does. Now, the problem I had with this, and I've used this on a couple of different sources now, but on this particular one, because it was so severe, you could either max it out and get...
Stop. As we're talking, who pops up on my watch?
Oh, hello, Tommy Reynolds.
Tommy Reynolds, you just literally popped up on my watch right there. If you're listening to this, hopefully not in the car, as per usual.
Yeah, but don't you always just have it programmed to have a little picture of Tommy pop up every so often?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just looking at him.
Every time I look at my watch, I've got a picture of Tommy Reynolds right here.
He's your background, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So with this plugin, on this particular source, which was in the car, you either have it maxed and you got what you got. But if you notched it down, it started to struggle a little bit. Now, and what I mean by that is you started getting the car sound back in, and it felt, say 80%, just for argument's sake, it sounded far more natural like that. Voice is clear, car was there, but there were too many artifacts to make it usable. And what I mean by artifacts is you got this kind of sound in the background, not on the voices, but in the background. And it was just it was unacceptable for me to use that kind of sound going on. So I had to just get rid of it all. The thought then crossed my mind, and this is what you would probably do in real life, is you could add some car noise in the background. Separate car noise. I didn't do that because I couldn't be bothered, because that was a lot of work, because you've got to remember that you're accelerating and slowing down, and I'm not going through an hour's worth of podcast. And
for sure,
you know what I mean? It's not worth it. The other option that you have with it is this plugin, you can also clean it up, so you've just got the voices, but you can do the opposite. You can get rid of all the voices,
right,
and just have the ambience.
Okay,
right?
I see.
Now, because the severity of the source material here in a car, the ambient sound had the same artifacts in it, which kind of makes sense because it's just a polar opposite. So I thought my idea was, I'll take the ambience and I'll just feed that in just underneath slightly. Had the same issues, and it just wasn't usable. So I thought the best solution for everyone concerned was just get rid of it all, clean up the voices as much as you could, and go with that. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
But powerful stuff, right?
I'm actually amazed that it sounds the way it sounds. And the thing about cleaning up the audio, for instance, and making it usable or acceptable for the audio listeners as well as the YouTube viewers. I've faced that every time I've recorded an episode over in Germany, for example, where typically I've just used the Rode Video Mic Go 2, which actually is a brilliant mic, generally speaking, when you're at a push, when you're in a fix. It's a brilliant mic to use. But one thing I realized was that if I use that for the YouTube version, it was actually really acceptable because you sort of have the the visual to go with it. But when you then listen to the audio only, then you really latch onto the lack of
the issues, if you like. Yeah.
And so
I couldn't agree more.
And that's that was my basic problem with it. And so I kind of thought, okay, I mean, it is easy to travel with. You just it's small, it doesn't require batteries. Throw in your suitcase, you just your hand luggage or whatever, and you're good to go. It's a brilliant thing. But there is a you're sort of giving away some of the quality. But in comparison to what you would want to hear on the audio version, on the audio podcast only.
That's it. Absolutely. And so I was just looking up the price of that plugin in a minute. So the Pro version of Waves Clarity is currently $250, which is it's the one I use. Now, that's apparently half price at the minute. Now, it's not. You can get that cheaper. Waves are one of those companies that plug-in companies are like this in general for audio. You can get that a lot cheaper. I believe I got it for 80 quid.
Oh, really? Okay.
£80. So what would that be? $110 or something like that when it came out. But that was when it came out.
Right.
They do a non-pro version, which has just a slightly limited feature set. I believe what I did with the audio in last week's episode, I could have done with the non-pro version.
Phenomenal.
I'm pretty confident.
The thing is, like, if you're out on location, for instance, you're running and gunning, you're recording some video, your audio is ropey because there's a lot of background noise. That will take care of it without any question. I mean, it's amazing, phenomenal. The way we tested it in an open top car, going 70 miles an hour, at some point, it's incredulous, really.
Yeah,
it's
crazy,
incredible,
crazy stuff. The technology behind it is absolutely outstanding.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, there are drawbacks. The voices can sound a little bit tinny at times when you really listen to it.
And that's because the severity of what it's trying to remove.
Oh, for sure.
They're the artifacts to it. And they're the artifacts.
And I mean, we were recording the whole thing with lapel mics.
Which doesn't help.
From Rode. But purely from a sound tech point of view, we had lapel mics that were relatively close to our mouths. And we had dead cats on them.
Which, absolutely did their job. Yeah. It's not going to get rid of wind noise into your mic.
Oh,
That's not what it's there for. It's not going to get rid of reverb in a room.
Sure.
It's not what it's there for. It's there to clean up and give you the purest vocal voice sound that it can possibly do. Car noise is not a voice sound. It gets rid of it. Reverberation in a room is, so it will keep that. However, it does also give you the option to get rid of that too. Or you can use a whole host of other de-reverb plugins to get rid of that if you need it really dry, which is what you want for a podcast.
I was trying to do that on a multi-band EQ.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to find that little.
Good luck. Honestly, if you want quick and dirty to get rid of room sound is generally around 500 hertz.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
You want to just get rid of, just notch out. You can make it fairly wide, but not too wide, because you'll see what happens to your voice when you make it too wide. But not just notch out a few dB, between 3 and 5 maybe for voice. And actually, it gives you that. Just doing that kind of move gives you that kind of. It's called like a smiley face kind of curve, which is actually what you want for a podcast kind of sound anyway. Yeah, that's quick and dirty.
So if you're only running, I don't know, Final Cut Pro X or Premiere Pro or something, you don't have lots of plugins, just use a multi-band EQ and you can get rid of that room sound to an extent relatively easily.
But I do highly recommend the Plugin Alliance de-reverb plugin. It's fantastic. Much better than Isotopes, which is the other main one that people use.
Yeah, I did get
it's so much simpler to use.
I did get some Isotopes plugins at some point. Some of them,
when they were on sale, the Elements versions for
correct, yes,
$30, something like that.
Something like that a couple of years ago. Some of them have sort of stopped working.
Oh, shame.
Yeah, and so overall,
I have the latest version of RX9. I've got the latest version, which is RX9. I've still got RX7 as part of it.
Okay.
So I might be able to transfer the ownership of RX7 to you.
There you go. You didn't hear that here first.
No, you're allowed to do stuff like that. You can do that.
Well,
you
there
can
you
do
go.
that. Yeah. But because it was an I'll have to see.
Right.
Not sure.
Sweet. Cool. So that was last week's podcast. A bit of an experiment, but it actually worked out really well.
Yeah.
Amazing. So for this week, what we're talking about is, why do we create?
Wow.
I came up with the idea. I was actually listening to
super philosophical.
I know. I was listening to another podcast the other day, and there was the idea stuck with me, because it's true, actually. It's true to say that a lot of the times when you watch YouTube videos or you listen to podcasts, a lot of it is based on how to do something, how to light something, how to use a camera, how to do this, how to do that, how to post somebody, whatever. How to create this look, how to mix something, how to color grade something. But it's not very often that the simple question of why we create what we create is actually being addressed. Oh. And it seems philosophical, maybe to some, but actually it's a very valid question.
Well, it is.
Because why do we do what we do. And at this point, we're going to go into, we're going to talk about why we do what we do. But again, as always, it'd be super interesting to hear why you do what you do. Do you do judo? Or do you do voodoo?
Did you say doo-doo?
Well, anyhow, so, while you create, get in touch, let us know, send us a message on Instagram, or you can get in touch on the TikTok or the Facebook or Twitter. Hey, if anybody out there uses Twitter,
Trump.
Not anymore.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. No, at ShakeHammer, get in touch, send us a message. Be super interesting to hear from you. Why do you do what you do? Let us know. Basically.
You said doo-doo.
I probably did. Anyhow, so why do we create? And that's, by the way, that's true for, it's true for photography. It's true. I mean, it's true for any creative endeavor. Obviously, whether it's, it doesn't matter whether it's your photography, or whether it's, whether you like make videos, or whether you like, I don't know, painting, drawing, graphic design, whatever it may be, any creative art as such, it boils down to the same thing. It's like, why do you do what you do?
Why do some people do it and others don't?
Why doesn't everybody do it? That's what I don't understand.
I've never thought about this before. This is a trickier question than I thought it was going to be. Well, my initial reaction to that question would be that when I create pretty much anything, whether that's this podcast that we're doing right now, or any other kind of video, or any other mixing, anything I'm doing, or writing a song, or whatever it might be that's like that, the things that I'm interested in creating, it's one of the few moments in my life on a day-to-day basis that I get true fulfillment, where I feel that I have achieved something, that I've done something good, that whatever other word you want to throw in there for that type of feeling. That's tricky.
Satisfaction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how else to put it right now. That's a tricky one to answer.
Because I mean, there are different reasons as to why, why someone would create something. I mean, one would be for commercial use, obviously, but
I don't think of it that way at all. I do it. It's a need for me. It's not. I don't do it to make money. Okay, I don't do it. I do it to make money, but that's not the real reason. I do it because it fulfills me. I am fortunate enough that I can make some money doing those things that I love doing. Very few people are able to say that, because that's gutting, actually.
That's very often, it's a difficult step from from being creative, and then creating stuff, and then monetizing your craft, basically.
Do you know what? There's something restricting about making money from it. There's something I don't like about that. Yes, it gives you perhaps more opportunities to create, which is great. And you can experiment to a certain extent and things like that and have some fun. But you're always under some kind of time pressure. You can't always do what you want to do with it, because you've got to meet the client's brief, and you can talk about that for forever. But when money isn't involved, and you're not doing it for someone else, and you're only doing it for yourself, there's something a bit more freeing about creating at that point.
That's true. There are also dangers with that, I think.
Yeah,
dangers.
There are.
I mean, it comes back to the done is better than perfect thing. I think when you're creating for yourself, the danger is that you'll never finish the project. because you're always kind of stuck in this sort of development hell, where you're like,
Yeah.
you want to make something better, and you're looking for the next thing, and then you're trying to tweak this and that and something else, and you're never really going to get to the end of it, and then it's really down to you to be, in a sense, hard-nosed enough to basically just draw the line and say, like, right, okay, this one thing is done, and I'm going to move on to the next thing. That's a hard decision to take sometimes when you're doing it just for your own fulfillment. When you work for a client, in many ways, it's much easier because there's a deadline, and then that's it. And you have to deliver, and whatever it is that you deliver at that point is what it is, and then you take it from there, basically. But coming back to the sort of core reason as to why we create, I often think, and for myself, this is really true. For anything that I've ever done, whether that's, video, we talked about this many times, like, when I was a kid, I started with a video camera, actually, I used to film everything around me, and I used to make little videos, and cut them together and make little kind of what I thought of as little movie sequences, and then, of course, when I got into music, I, made a lot of music and wrote material and, wrote music and came up with stuff. Initially, of course, when you're a kid, you come up with riffs, and then those riffs develop into more substantial musical sequences, and eventually you get to the point where you actually write whole songs, and then then you write songs for yourself, for your own enjoyment, and and then maybe you play in a band and you write songs for the band, and then it goes on to writing songs for other people, and and in photography, it's a similar thing, because certainly when I got into photography, it wasn't because I had any kind of commercial intent. It was really just for myself, and I had particular reasons as to why I got into it, because my life was at a certain point and things had happened, and I just needed an outlet, basically. And then it just went from there to, well, pretty much in the same vein. It's like you do stuff and you just do them because you want to do them and you've got fun doing them. And then somebody turns around and says, well, you know what? Can you do this for me? And I'll give you some money for it. And you go, oh, really? All right. Okay. And then you're in the realm of making commercial transactions, and then it's not necessarily very far from there to then thinking, well, if there's one person willing to pay you, there might be other people willing to pay you. But ultimately, the thing of making things, for me, it's always been the process of making something. That's the part I enjoy. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's music or whether it's photography or whether it's making a video. I like the actual process of making it. Once I'm done with it, I'm done with it. And then I'm looking forward to the next idea, the next thing.
Yeah.
Because I quite like I don't know. I mean, it's this blend of creativity and technology and technique, where you're putting these things together and you're getting technically better at doing something, just like playing the guitar. The better you get technically, the more you can do on the instrument. That means the more complicated or complex things you can write and perform and whatnot. And it's the same thing in photography. The better you get at handling your camera and handling lighting and all that kind of stuff, and post-production, of course. This is the better your stuff's going to get. And in a sense, for me, that's always been the driver, where I always then thought, ooh, okay, that's not half bad. If I can do that, I wonder if I can do this other thing, And of course, you come up against obstacles, and you're going to have to get over them by gaining the knowledge somehow, maybe by you learn new skills in any way you want to learn, books, YouTube videos, talking to other people. And then you gain that additional skill, and that enables you to do another thing. And, and as you go on like that, you just create this multifaceted skill set that then allows you to create more and more stuff. And on the flip side of that, of course, that sort of then allows you to, to turn that into an income in a sense, if you then want to commercialize it. But whether you want to commercialize it or not is completely, that's a whole different question, because I guess, a lot of people say, and in fact, we had a comment on it the other day on one of our YouTube videos, where somebody said, I only take photos for enjoyment. I'm not really interested in making money for it. Oh, it was a response to a video we did a few weeks ago, which was about, should hobby photographers charge money for?
Yep.
Remember?
Yeah.
And so one of our viewers, left a comment saying like, oh well, actually I just want to do it for fun, and that's totally cool, 100%. But and we get to that in a minute. When you then start to create stuff for somebody else, you're then in a sense you're making use of your skill or your skills and your talent, but at the same time you're limited by whatever it is that your client wants or requires, and you're also limited by what you've agreed to deliver, because the difficult part there is to basically actually to restrain yourself to say like, well, no, I'm not going to spend another 12 hours on the color grading because the client's only paying me for this one day of editing. And that's a difficult thing to do.
It is, but that's also where you need to have put the hours in before to know that you can still get it to a high enough standard,
sure,
without needing to put all those additional hours in that you would like to put.
And sometimes you have to, because things do go wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So
oh, yeah.
Have to,
always
put the hours in to fix it.
Yeah. But it's no, I hear what you're saying. It's, I mean, I feel, I do feel a lot of the time. Yeah, I just did an audio project recently for myself, and it was brilliant just to do that, But we were under so me and Paula, we were under time pressure to get it done by a certain date, because we were doing something for her dad's birthday, and that it was just enough of a deadline to go, that is going to have to do. I could have spent another 2 weeks on that.
Yeah,
she said the same, and she says, if I need a deadline, otherwise I will find reasons not to do it today.
Sure.
Or reasons that I would like to redo that or redo this.
Yeah.
But if it's 95% there, and actually you would need to spend the same time again to just get that extra 5%, why?
Yeah, it's that 80-20 rule.
Yeah, it's only you who's going to notice it. Yeah, no one else. Yeah. No one else.
No.
Anyway.
See, it's an interesting thing because, my wife she's actually very creative in her own way, but she's not like involved in photography or music or anything like that. And it's, to her, she's a very kind of analytical, can't even talk. Half a bit in, I can't talk. She's a very analytical person. She's a very academic person, and I think before we met, it was very difficult for her to understand how somebody can spend the amount of time that I spent on creating something, right? And it's only since she's known me, she's realized how it's like a compelling force. And I was trying to explain that to her like that, I didn't in the beginning. It's not that I want to make things. I mean, of course I want to make things, but it's not only that I want to make things. I'm compelled to make things.
Yeah.
I have no choice in the matter.
I don't know what I would do if I didn't create.
And it's partly, of course.
God, I'd be bored.
Well, yeah, you'd be bored, but also, it's part of your whole mental health and all the rest of it. Again, I mean, for those of you who have, been following this podcast, for some time, you'll know that the reason why we started this podcast, of course, we'll come back to that, was because of the pandemic. And we were in this situation where we basically were cut off from the rest of the world, stuck, imprisoned, if you like, because of the lockdown. And we both got to the point where we thought, like, what the heck are we going to do? We have to do something, like literally just physically do something. We come up with some idea as to how we can stay creative and make stuff. And, whilst we're in this situation. And at the time, it was a bit, it was like therapy, wasn't it? It was like, mental health therapy, if you want. And we did loads of things, and we came up with lots of different things. We just made up stuff. We started a podcast, but then within that, we had little competitions, and we made things. We just kind of.
Which we should get back to, by the way.
Ooh, and
not that I've got any bloody time right now to do that.
But I do have an idea for that.
Okay, fine.
Which I won't mention now.
We've actually got a couple of outstanding guest challenges.
Oh yes, and there's quite potentially something coming up in that respect. So we'll talk more about that.
We're not going to stop here or pause. You're going to keep talking, but I'm going to just walk out that door for a second and come back.
Okay,
all right. Keep talking. You.
No problemo.
I'll be back.
So anyway, get in touch. Let us know why you do what you do. Obviously, and like I said earlier, is it what is the driver in what you do? Is your driver that you need to pay the mortgage or you need to pay the rent? Is that your driver? Is it a commercial thing? Because I know I have friends who are professional photographers, for example, and that may very well be their driver. Maybe because they have a kid or they have a family, they need to put food on the table, and that's what drives them. And in their spare time, I can fully understand. Maybe they don't want to have anything to do with photography or cameras or anything like that. Maybe they just want to get out of it. Sound effect right there. Maybe that's it. Maybe, when 6 o'clock comes around, you shut the doors, that's it. You just want to Netflix and chill. All cool. No problemo. But, is that you, or can you just never stop? Is it the thing that kind of rattles around in your brain? Is that, is there an idea? And I know, what happens with me is I have an idea and it rattles around in my brain. I'm trying to work out how to do this thing that I've just come up with. And then before I know it, I get sidetracked by another idea that rattles around my brain. I kind of think, oh, that's an even cooler idea. And then, something else happens, and then it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. And how, I can't remember who that's based on, but how you can kind of classify people. Like you can basically say like, okay, well, this person is a finisher and this person is whatever.
Oh, there's so many different words for that. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And, and I've always found that I'm not very much of a finisher. I'm sort of more of an ideas guy, where basically I have an idea and, I think that at that moment, I think, well, this is the coolest idea I've ever had. And then, a little while later, I have another idea and be like, oh, that's even better. And then I'm sort of completely invested into that idea.
Do you know what one of your best ideas today has been?
Beer.
Nope.
No?
Nope. McDonald's for dinner.
Oh, McDonald's. That's always a good idea. That's not even my idea. That's always a good idea.
Oh. But yeah. I struggle to finish stuff often, and it's actually not necessarily because I want to keep, making it better, and I got to get that final 5% perfect and all that. It's not necessarily that. It's actually more, I just love the process so much that I just want to keep going with it. I don't want it to end. It's more that than anything else. And I find that with audio constantly. I find that with video. I find it less so with just photos. All right. Mm-hmm. And I have thought about this before, and I've wondered why. And the reason is because I'm well versed in audio. I'm well versed in video, but I'm not as good at photo. My skills are not as as good at photo as they are in video and and audio. And I think that is the reason why. So, however, the result is the same. And what I mean by that is that audio and video, I'll keep going because I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love what I'm doing. Photo, I still love it, but I keep going because I don't think it's quite there yet.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because I
absolutely,
don't believe
100%.
because my skills are not as good there as they are in the other two areas.
Sure.
And
I can sort of say my skills are the exact opposite of that.
yeah, right.
Sure.
Sorry, the dog was just jumping. She's so thirsty, but she won't get near her water. Come on.
Yeah, it's pretty damn hot in here.
Come on. I'm going to move the water for her. Come on.
It's one of those things. I mean,
See?
the problem with the creative arts is that
She's a queen. Little princess needed the water bringing to her.
especially, I think the creative arts generally. I mean, even if you sort of categorize and you kind of say, okay, you've got visual arts and then you've got music, for example, or whatever. But ultimately, it's all really about creativity. It's about making something out of thin air. And this is the thing that's fascinated me ever since I was a kid. Was just this thing that you have an idea, and then you go through a process, and then by the end of it, you have something tangible, like a new piece of music or a new photo or a new video or whatever. And you've just made something out of thin air, out of something that didn't exist. You just birthed something into existence that didn't exist before. And that's always the thing that's fascinated me in the past. It's like how, we as humans are capable of just taking something, an idea, some electrical impulses in your brain, some synapses that are firing in there somewhere, and then to turn it into something, to turn it into something that's actually something tangible, something that actually exists at the end, and that's always fascinating me. It's sort of it's this thing, and I think you're either the kind of person who enjoys the end product, like you have a lot of people like my mom, she likes to go to galleries and look at photographs or paintings or whatever. She's not really interested in the process of making something. She likes to watch plays, but she's not really interested in the process of writing plays.
That is so hard for people like us to understand. I don't get that at all. I can't understand how someone can listen to music, look at a photo, watch a video, and not wonder, how has that been done?
Not ask why.
Yeah, I don't.
How is that?
We're just you're just wired differently, and that's not to say that they're wrong. It's not in the slightest, because they're the people that should be there to enjoy it. We don't enjoy watching a film or any kind of video or listening to music in the same way that people who aren't creatives, let's say, do. They hear it and watch it and see it in a totally different way to us.
Completely. And
I'm slightly envious of that to a certain extent.
In many ways, I mean, this is again, one of the discussions I have with my wife once in a while is that, we listen to music differently. Like she listens to music and she's taken aback by the vibe and what it reminds her of. Maybe it reminds her of a time in the past, a particular moment, or maybe just puts her in a particular mood. That's that's listening to that's what listening to music means to her, and it's amazing. For me, I listen to a piece of music and I immediately think, wow, the guitar parts are on the beat, or that behind the beat, or or the drummer has that laid back feel, or the snare sounds awesome, or the backing vocals are amazing, or something like that, And I'm thinking like, whatever, the harmonies are great, or that Fender Rhodes sound is fantastic, or that arrangement is really cool. That chord progression is amazing. How did they come up with that?
Isn't it funny? Because I automatically go to the mix of the song,
right,
and how it sounds overall. Why is there so much low end on that guitar? Why is there this? Whatever it might be, all of that kind of stuff, right? And secondary to that would be the performance, which contributes to the sound anyway, but that would be slightly secondary. And tertiary to that would be the things like arrangement and the actual writing.
Well, I'd be like, what they go from a C-7.
It was only a few years ago I actually started hearing any lyrics.
Right. Oh, yeah.
I've never listened because I, quite frankly, I've never given two shits what anyone has to say when they're singing. I don't care.
So here's a funny thing, right? So,
I care about the melody of what they're singing,
yeah, well,
and
absolutely.
how it fits musically.
100%.
But I do not care what you have to say.
So see, the thing for me about this is, I grew up in Germany, and obviously,
obviously you only listen to David Hasselhoff over there, right?
Oh, apart from that, yeah,
nothing
of
else,
course, definitely. But apart from the Hoff, I used to grow up when I was a kid. I used to grow up speaking German, and especially when I grew up, 95% of the music that we would listen to on the radio was English speaking. So it was either American or British or whatever, and that was the thing. It's a little bit different now. When I go to Germany and I listen to the radio, they have definitely a higher percentage of German lyrics, type of German produced music, but it's not like in France where there's a ratio that by law has to be upheld. But in any event, when I grew up, it was predominantly English speaking music, and so I grew up listening to the melodies, not understanding what the words meant, and so for me, but the words literally meant nothing because I didn't know what they were, and so your focus is automatically on the melodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, when eventually I started music in the UK, I was playing in bands at college and whatever, and then eventually I played in a band for 9 years, and we wrote exclusively original material. And I remember, even after 9 years, I had no clue what the songs were about because I'd never really paid any attention to the meaning of the words. I knew all the melodies, and all the harmonies and all the rest of it, but I didn't actually know what the words were saying.
Yeah.
And that's just because I just grew up listening to the melodies. And my concern has always been like, oh, how does the melody flow? How does, what are the intervals? How does it go?
Yep. Yep.
And I've never really paid any attention to the lyrics. And it was only when I started working in studios and I started working with other, songwriters in particular and lyricists, that I really started to realize what an art form that actually is.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, I've worked with a number of lyricists or songwriters I should say, who are incredible lyricists. And what struck me with that was how fast they could come up with words that were actually really deep, really meaningful, and worked with the melody and all the rest of it. But just the speed of coming up with that was amazing. And of course, I worked with a songwriter called Mark Tremaine, who did a lot of R&B and hip hop type of music, and we wrote a lot of stuff together, and we worked on a lot of songs together, a lot of tracks for a lot of different artists over the span of about 10 years or something. And I remember, I asked him at one point, it's like, how did you, I'll tell you what, there was one particular situation where we were in a studio, we're actually working on a track, and then we just had a break. And during the break, I had my guitar and I just started playing like some solo arrangement, kind of bluesy, funky type of a thing, right? And then the actual singer started rapping, and then Tremaine started kind of call and response rapping, having a rap conversation, if you want. And it all made perfect sense. And it was a full-on rap rhyming conversation made up right that second. And I remember sitting there going like, I have no idea how they're doing it. How the hell are they doing this? And it's interesting because I had this conversation with Tremaine at some point. And I was just like, man, I just don't understand how you do this. How are you able to come up with these incredible lyrics just from the tip of a hat, And he said, look, I mean, the thing is, it's just like you playing the guitar, because you spend hours every day playing the guitar and you get better playing the guitar, and I look at you playing the guitar, and I don't understand how you do what you do. You know.
Yep.
But
That's it.
he said, you know, when you write your first song, it's different. It's difficult. You know, you write a second song, it's difficult. You write a 10th song, it's getting a little bit easier. He said, I've spent the last 15 years doing nothing but writing songs. That's why I am as good as this. Just like you are as good at playing the guitar as you are, because you haven't done anything other than doing that for the last 15 years. And of course, you know, then you start to realize this is a talent, it's a skill that needs to be honed and crafted and worked on, you know, and you get good by doing the thing over and over and over and over again. And then you do it again, you know, and again and again and again. And as you keep doing it, you just get better at it. You get better at it, you get faster at it. And
there's that, I'll get the phrasing wrong, or I'll get it slightly wrong, but there's something out there that says, if you spend 10,000 hours doing something, that's when you become an expert at doing whatever that is.
Yeah, but I don't really know if it's exactly 10,000, but I know
whatever that is, right? There's something like a crazy number.
Yeah.
You know, it takes years and years and years. And it doesn't matter how quickly you get through it, you just need to spend that amount of time doing it.
I also find that, you know, when you move from one creative art form to another, it's, you know, there are some transferable skills almost.
Oh, for sure.
The way I've always tried to explain creativity, because, you know, one of the things that happens quite regularly is let's say I go back to Germany and I meet people that I went to school with, and they're maybe in careers that have nothing to do with being creative at all. Like, I mean, you know, maybe they're lawyers or they work for the tax man, you know, or whatever it may be, or they do business stuff.
Tax man. Yeah.
And, you know, one of the
tax man.
one of the questions that comes up a lot is, you know, how do you do what you do? Like, how can you come up with stuff all the time? And you know, to me, creativity has always been this thing where I always imagine it like this. I imagine it like a locked door.
Mm-hmm.
And your ability to be creative is your ability to have the key and to unlock that door. And you basically open that door, and that's what allows you to let that creativity flow. And in my head, it's a little bit like, well, if you don't have the key and you can't open that door, then you're going to be blocked off from being able to let those creative ideas out. And you may feel like you're not able to be creative. But I do believe that every human being has that ability, that innate, you know, ability to be creative. It's just about finding that key. And what you do is when you get into those disciplines, you get into music or you get into photography or creating videos or whatever, it's you're on that quest to finding that key that allows you to just open a door and let it flow. You know, and sometimes when you have these moments where you have, you know, writer's block, basically, you just sit down and you're like, oh man, I can't come up with anything. Like, what is happening? You know, I can't think of anything. I then start to almost like meditate and just literally visually imagine that door in my head, you know, and I imagine that key and I imagine opening that door. And that tends to work for me, you know. Without going like super esoteric here.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Yeah. Oh, I visualize a door.
That's literally what I do. I mean, it's literally what I do. But, you know, because sometimes, of course, the thing is, like, sometimes you just have to. The problem is, it's all well and good to sit on the couch and wait for, you know, creativity to hit you.
There's only one way for it to happen.
It's
got to do it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do it.
You just have to do it.
Yeah, that's it.
And out of nowhere, you'll go, "Oh, that's good."
Yeah, and you just carry on.
Yeah,
you just have to get started. I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah. No. You can run into that trap very easily. Yeah. Very, very easily.
And you know, very often what that means for me at home is the starting point is very often just setting up the backdrop.
Yep.
setting up the tripod, setting up the lights, setting up some props. And before you know it, you've got backdrop, you got lights, you got props. And then you're pretty much halfway down the road already.
So why there's an argument to say don't have it set up all the time, right?
Sure.
So because once you start that process, you're invested, you're committed then at that point. Yeah, if it's already set up constantly, you're sod it. The same is true if you've got a separate space, like away from your house. That's not not a home studio. That maybe even if it's a separate building attached to your house, or in the garage, or wherever it might be, or down the high street, what doesn't matter. You're leaving where you normally are to go to a specific place. Yeah. You're then invested in doing something once you're there.
That's absolutely work. Yeah, totally.
Do you know what I mean? It does make a difference, that kind of stuff.
You're actually absolutely right. So, my shooting space at home has some multiple functions. I have to take some of my gear down sometimes, and sometimes I leave the backdrop up. Sometimes I have to take everything down because we move a table in or whatever. And sometimes I leave it set up for a little while. But I actually like the fact that I have to take stuff down, because every time I set it back up, or every time I think like, okay, well, I've got this idea and I want to do something, or even if it's just, I have time and I'm going to go, I just want to do something. I don't know what it is yet. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to start by clearing the space, setting up the lights or setting up the backdrop or whatever. And that's the starting point. And then very often you get from there, because you're already physically doing something. Then it's literally just, putting one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
Before exactly you know it, you've actually made something. And of course, we're not talking about, at this point, we're really just talking about little creative projects. We're not talking about, commercial endeavors. However, that being said, as you hone your skill, as you come up with different ways to light something, as you come up with different looks, maybe you come up with different, angles or whatever it is, what you're actually doing is you're enhancing your skill set, which is something that then, that then can be monetized, and can be turned into income, because it's something else that you can offer.
Yeah.
One of the biggest examples for that is always, trying to change in terms of headshots, trying to change your backgrounds or trying to change your looks or your angles, coming up with different looks. I'm always endeavoring to do that, because the sort of the most commercially viable looks that I use at the moment are all fine and dandy, but I can do them with my eyes shut. And I need to break out of that mold a little bit. I know they're sellable. I know they work for my clients, but I'm always looking for more variety.
Yeah,
on that.
Absolutely, and you should maintain doing the ones that work.
Oh,
no
sure.
question.
100%. Yeah, definitely.
They work for a reason, right? But you need to keep your kind of, you need to hold your own interest in what you're doing, so that you can try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. Because otherwise, it very quickly becomes like a.
Oh God!
Like
good God! Another bloody headshot session.
Yeah. It becomes
the
very samey. Yeah.
Shots again and again and again.
And that's why I don't like to do short sessions. I don't like to do 20-minute sessions. It's not what I do. I've tried to stay away from it.
So do you break those out? I know we've talked about these sessions a lot, but I don't know. I never remember how far we get into them. But do you break them out in such a way we do look 1, look 2, look 3, all of that kind of stuff? I know you break them into looks that they might want to do, but how do you break them down with regards to type of shot that you're doing?
Okay, so that really, that depends on a number of different things. Like one of the things that it depends on is how much time the client has, because because my session is open ended, so there's no time limit on it. So it's not like, you're getting a 20-minute session or you're buying an hour or 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
It's literally, it's open-ended. Where that makes sense for me is in the more, the more different looks I can provide, the more options there are for the client to buy additional photographs, which is basically where the profit comes in. So it's essentially, if you think about it, it's sort of a way of upselling.
Yep.
So if the client says to me like, okay, well, I've got an hour, then I can run through so many different looks, and if they say, oh, I don't have an appointment or something, I've got a couple of hours, then I know I can extend it. And then for me, the opportunity to sell more is higher, if that makes sense. Or the chance of selling more looks is higher. So, but they, these looks have to be different enough so that the client says, oh yeah, I want, that's different enough, so I want to buy this and one of those shots and another shot. And at the same time, I need to be able to change over between them relatively quickly. So what I do is with my standard looks, basically, I have a particular sequence, which basically means that I can start with this, and then I know I just have to change the light, and then I'm into look 2, and I just have to do this to get into change 3, to get into look 3, and then I have to change the background, which usually when you change the backdrop, that's one of the most time-intensive things. Or if you have to change the whole lighting setup or whatever. So I'm trying to make that logical so that I can go from look 1 to look 2 to look 3 relatively quickly without having to set up, with minimizing the setup time. That's what I mean. Do you know what I mean? So, because let's say I have 3 looks, 1, 2, and 3. If I go from 1 into 2, that will only take me 2 minutes to change the setup. But if I went from 1 into 3, that would take me 5 minutes to change the setup, which basically means I'm losing shooting time. And so, so that's just kind of how I think. But the more variety I can create, the more of a chance there is that the client goes, okay, well, I buy this and I buy one shot from that look and another look. And if you go through 5 looks and they buy at least one shot from every look, then you've just sold 5 photos. And if you can cram 6 looks, then you might sell 6. And that's additional profit. So, just look at it like that. But of course, if somebody says like, oh, well, and this happens quite frequently, they go like, yeah, okay, well, I've got nothing else on today. I've got 4 hours. Then there's an opportunity there for me to actually maximize on that session. But I also have to have all those different looks ready to rattle through, because otherwise they might just go, if you're done after 4 looks, well, then they're only ever going to buy 4 photos.
That's right.
That's the thing.
Exactly right.
That's the thing. So, so it's a slightly different way of working compared to having set packages, or like having time restrictions on a shoot or whatever. It's an opportunity to effectively upsell, but you're going to have to do your homework and get that variety going, and and you have to have a logical sequence as to how to change from one to the other, because otherwise, if you spend a lot of time changing your kit around, then you're not shooting, and then you're not creating product that the client can potentially buy. That's the thing.
But and this is why to tie this back to creating. This is why you go and create. You come up with these different looks. You do self-portraits for in this kind of circumstance. You shoot your family and friends.
Absolutely,
and just
definitely
be creative and just go. What? Just want to invite a mate over.
Exactly.
You know what? I tell you what. Come over. I'll buy the box of beer, and we'll just have a few beers. And all I want you to do is just pose for me in the way that I say.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to try out a load of stuff. Some of it might be crap. No problem. We'll just delete those. You never have to look at those again.
In my case, it's usually self-portraits, or I get one of my daughters to stand in. And at the moment, my youngest daughter is she's game still.
Speaking of which, you owe us a barbecue still.
Oh, I was thinking about this the other day.
For us and Gary.
Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day.
Sorry, people. You're just going to have to hang on 2 seconds while we sort this out.
Oh yeah, can absolutely happen. My garden is like my lawn is burned to smithereens.
There we go.
So if you
So your dog can piss all over it.
well, it's not that. I mean, if you want to have a barbecue in a virtual desert, I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely,
that's it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah,
Done.
absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Anyway, we're back.
I make a kiddo smash burger, my friend.
Oh, you got to put your money where your mouth is.
I've actually made a lot of burgers recently. Well,
I'll see you Sunday.
oh, I'll be in Germany on Sunday.
I'll see your garden on Sunday.
Oh, here's the thing. Oh no, no. Oh my god. Oh. So this is like on a completely different topic. Moving house. Oh boy. So I've gone to Germany.
Good fun, huh?
Well, I've been to Germany recently, as you know. And one of the reasons I went to Germany was because I was gonna hang out with my youngest daughter, and my mom, so my daughter's grandmother, and we were gonna have some family time. But my mom also happens to be in the process of moving house, and so of course we were helping with the whole house move thing, right? And to start out with, my mom had this idea that at first glance sounds like it makes sense, because she kind of thought like, oh well, we've got a month to move house because she's renting out her apartment and the tenant moves in the 1st of September. Like, okay, we've got a month to move house, so why don't we just take it slow? Every time I'll go over, because she's moving in together with her partner, we'll load up the car and we'll take some stuff, and then the next time you come over, you take some stuff, and we'll just do it slowly and gradually over the course of a month. So it's no big hassle, no stress, easy. That really doesn't work, because what it actually does is it creates a whole month of stress.
Oh, yeah.
And so, there was a point where I said to her, like, look, I think what you should have done is you should have just hired some guys and a van, like a removal truck, and just get it all done in a weekend. And then it's super stressed for a weekend, but then you're done. It's done. You're not dragging it out over the course of a whole month, which is mind-numbingly atrocious. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So anyway.
Yep.
So, yeah. So
I will never move myself again.
Okay. So in this whole process, right?
I hate it.
Because there's always this, my mom was like, getting,
I get a bad knee walking up and down stairs. I got a bad back.
Yeah.
I have to ask people to help. Sod that. Just spend a few £100. You're buying a house. You're spending God knows how much.
Yeah,
Just spend an extra few £100 and have someone who does it every day.
Yeah, you're buying
knows how to do it quickly.
Yeah.
And is got the stamina to do it and the people to do it.
But here's the thing, so she was like getting herself in a complete tiff, because she was running around, doing one thing in one room and then like doing another thing in another room, and then she went to the kitchen and she's going through drawers and getting stressed out about this. And at some point I said, look, let's do this differently. Let's just focus on one room at a time, right? If you do the bedroom, forget about the kitchen, because we're doing the kitchen tomorrow or the day after or whatever. But for today, we're only going to do the bedroom. So whatever you think is happening,
don't need while you're still here.
Yeah, exactly. So, and so we start doing that. And, and the thing was, she was going through stuff and couldn't decide what to take and whatnot. And I said, like, look, there are only 3 things that could potentially happen to each one of these objects in front of you. You either keep it, or you throw it away, or you give it away. These are the only 3 things that can possibly happen to any of these, all that stuff that's in front of you, right? So this is the only question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to keep it? Do you want to give it away? Or do you want to throw it away? And you literally make 3 piles. The stuff you're going to keep, the stuff you're going to throw away, and the stuff you're going to give away. And that's it, right? At this point, you're not going to think about who you're going to give it to.
Don't worry about that.
You're not going to think about am I going to, how are you going to throw it away? Is it going to go in a house rubbish, or is it going to go in to the recycling yard or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to think any further than this primary objective: keep it, throw it away, or give it away, right? And it's really interesting. I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot about my mom, but I've learned, generally, it's really interesting how different people have different, what's the word? Like different people have different ways of thinking about things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll give you an example. So
Mm-hmm.
my mom is the kind of person, like her house is always super tidy. It's in like, everything's in tip-top condition. Like she basically, if it's Easter, all the Easter decoration is out. If it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, all that decoration is out. I mean, it looks like a show home every time you walk in there, right? It's always been the case ever since it was a kid. That's just how she is. She likes doing that. She likes decorating, whatever. So we were going through a bunch of boxes of old family photos, right? And I think there were 5 boxes. The boxes weren't particularly big. They were about maybe 3 centimeters by 10, 15 centimeters, something like that.
Like a shoebox.
Like a shoebox. They're actually smaller than a shoebox, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
There were about 5 of them. And she's like, "Oh, I can't take. There's no space, in the new place. There's no space in the basement. It's all full of stuff and whatever."
For shoeboxes.
Yeah, I mean, half. Imagine it to be half a shoebox, right? Roughly. So she's like, "I gotta get rid of this and get rid of it." And that's like, okay, well, listen, you at this point, you don't know. I mean, there's certainly there are probably photographs you can get rid of, whatever, but you don't know what you're going to keep and what you're not. That's not something to decide right now. You basically put them on the side, you keep them for now, and then, on a quiet evening, you can go through each box and go through the photographs and decide what you're going to keep and what not. But right now, you just have to make the decision, basically, whether you're going to keep it or not. Okay. Anyway, so then, anyway, she was getting into a panic. It's like, oh, there's no place to keep this. There's no space. And so in the end, she decided to throw all these boxes away, right? And I'm like, I'm sort of shocked because I'm like, oh my God, they're like photographs, it's like history. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, oh, okay, I couldn't get to grips with that.
Mm.
But then, what she decided to keep? 5 removal boxes of shoes.
Spectacular.
And boxes and boxes of Easter and Christmas decorations. And boxes.
Yeah, throw the photos away.
But throw the photos away. And you can, you're like, wow.
You don't really want to know what I think about that.
No, exactly. I mean, so the thing is like, and you just realize that, different people just have completely different priorities from yourself. And on one hand, of course, you can think, well, okay, I'm open-minded enough to realize that that's fine. Not everybody's. I mean, I look at some of these photographs and they're like, they're probably nearly 100 years old, and you look at those and you're like, wow. I mean, it's incredible. These were all living, breathing people, and they're all dead now or whatever. But this might be, and a lot of the time, of course, I don't recognize the people in there. It might be like, my dad's uncle's brother's niece who shared a toaster with the guy who shared a flat with at one point, So I don't know who they are.
Mm.
But, clearly these photographs would have meant something to someone at a time. And I found it very difficult, very, very difficult to get rid of that. And then, at the same time, my mom's partner had an old slide projector, like a really old slide projector from the 50s or something. And he said, like, look, I'm trying to get rid of stuff from the basement. And he goes like, but I thought you might like this. I don't want to throw it away. If you like it, you can, if you want it, you can have it. And I looked at it and it's really awesome. It's fully functional, totally awesome in its own little carry case and everything. And it fit in my suitcase.
Well, convenient, that.
So, yeah, convenient. So it now resides at my house in the UK. But it's just it just goes to show, sometimes when you have to make decisions like that, it just goes to show that different people have different priorities. And
Absolutely.
Maybe
It's
that
true.
is why we are photographers and picture makers. It's because
Maybe.
photographs just mean more to us than they may mean to other people.
Maybe.
So it really made me think. It's like, oh man, I can't go.
But you got a slide projector out of it, and that's.
I did. I don't have any slides.
And on that smug bombshell.
Anywho,
dear.
so
Yeah.
now, this time we really want to hear from you. Let us know what your process of creating stuff is. How do you go about it? What does it mean to you? Are you interested in the process? Are you not? Is it just a thing that you do, for a living, and you couldn't be asked to, do any more than that? Like, come 5 o'clock, you pull the shutters down, shut the door, and you go home. If that's you, absolutely perfectly fine. But we do want to hear from you. So if you get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram, on TikTok, send us an email on camerashakepodcast@gmail.com. Whichever, send us a pigeon. Whichever way you do it, awesome. Get in touch. Also, if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts, remember to, give us a little star rating. That'd be phenomenal because it really helps us being found on the platform. And if you are so inclined, head over to YouTube, if you want to see us in full Technicolor. And, if you want to check out our new look set, let us know what you think about that. Also phenomenal. So that's it. It's episode 117 of the Camera Shake podcast. In the back. Woohoo. We're going to be back next week in different countries once again. Anyhow, but after that, so if you're still listening, then good news, because next time we're going to be talking about a photography show that's coming up next month.
Oh yeah, we wouldn't have been there by that point.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about that and all the amazing stuff that's happening there. The program has just come out, and I've had a look at it, and it's phenomenal. So there's a lot of really cool stuff.
We haven't even settled the dates that we're going yet.
Oh no. But anyway, we'll be there.
Might be there for a minute or two.
Yeah, we'll be there. But we'll talk about that next time. Anyway, that's it. Episode 117.
Shebang.
See you next week.
Laters.